Councillor Cordover.
Thank you, Mayor. Very quickly, this is a response to the petition that was put forward. It's probably quite important at the outset to recognise the, statutory obligations that a council has when a petition is put forward. One of those requirements is that the council then assesses that petition, and that's the report that we have before us. I guess the important points of the report are that the central issue here, which is about the idea of how do we pay for climate-related actions, is probably summarised best in 4.3 on page 220 of my agenda, that says, unfortunately, the premise of a rate rise is no longer available due to the COVID-19 pandemic and a commitment by council to a zero rate rise in 2020 and 2021. So now it becomes a matter of communication and consultation. And so I note that at 7.1, it says that it is proposed, subject to resourcing, to work with Sunday Regional Council and the Regional Climate Council initiative through the STCA to develop a climate change communication strategy that aligns with our overall communication strategy. It's worth also noting that the risk here mentioned in the report is that climate change is identified as a high unmitigated risk, and mitigation controls that are listed are ongoing studies and investigations and keeping the public informed. So there's obviously a lot more work to be done with respect to having climate action now in a meaningful way on this council. But overall, the recommendation of this report that I'm moving is that due to council's COVID-19 pandemic budgetary commitment to a 0% rate rise for 2020-2021 financial year, the request cannot be accommodated, and council remains committed to meaningful action on climate change. And as far as practicable, the actions contained within the Kingborough Climate Change Plan will be progressively addressed. On a personal note, I've long advocated for much more action on climate, and I recognise that this crisis is not going to go away if we just put our heads in the sand. Things will get worse, and the best way that we can mitigate the disasters caused by climate change is to act now. And if there's anything we've seen from a COVID pandemic, especially from the experiences around the world, a little bit of investment in personal protective equipment, in training, in medicine and research and development, a little bit of investment in frontline medical workers and infrastructure would have gone a very long way in mitigating the widespread disaster that we've seen, particularly in the United States and places in Europe, when it comes to the COVID crisis. So I'd just like us to all keep that in our heads.
What we're talking about at the moment, Councillor Cordover?
Are we not talking about climate, Matt?
We're not talking about the coronavirus pandemic and personal protective equipment.
I'll leave that to you, Matt.
Look, Councillor Cordover, just if you remain relevant to the motion.
Thanks very much, Mayor. Trying to stay germane to the motion about climate change funding and the notion of investing early in order to save money later, I think it is germane to this conversation. But at any rate, I reiterate Council's commitment to acting on climate, and I reiterate Council's commitment as in the second point of the recommendation. And so I commend this report to Council, and I would like to especially thank Mr. Dool, the author and the authoriser. Thank you, Mayor.
If there's no further speakers, I'll ask Councillor Cordover to sum up.
Thank you, Mayor. It's my pleasure to sum up. What we talked about here was a petition asking for more action on climate change and the recognition that, unfortunately, due to the COVID crisis, we're unable to act further on climate change beyond our pre-existing commitments. There was some robust debate where it was mentioned that we shouldn't be talking about COVID, despite the fact that this entire petition specifically talks about COVID. And so I'm glad that we were able to clear up that was an incorrect assertion, that we shouldn't be talking about COVID, when in fact, if the councillors had read the report, they would have clearly seen that it is about COVID. So I accept that apology in advance, and I amend the motion to the council. Thank you, Mayor.